I'm going to introduce you to William Doc Walls. My name is Art Norman, Channel 5 News, Vice President of the National Association of Black Journalists. William Doc Walls is a political activist. He's also a product of our public school system. He went to school at Horace Mann Elementary and CVS High School. In 1974, William Doc Walls was on the Public League championship football team. He's an athlete, but he's also a scholar. He's a product of a historically black college, Tuskegee University. After that, he went to law school at Chicago Kent College of Law. Many of us at the press corps know him extremely well because when Harold Washington was mayor of the city of Chicago, he was the chief scheduler. We had to go through William Doc Walls to talk to the mayor. But he's walked this walk before. He ran for mayor in 2007 and again in 2011. He's a proud dad, 3 kids, and 6 grandchildren. Please welcome William Doc Walls.
Good evening. How's everybody doing? Certainly a pleasure to be here. As was indicated, my name is Bill Doc Walls. And back in 1982, when Harold Washington announced his candidacy for mayor, every fiber of my being stood up and I knew I had to get involved. So I took a leave of absence from law school and I helped to organize the Lawyers Committee for Harold, served as president of law students for Harold Washington, served as his assistant scheduler, and then became his direct assistant. And in that capacity, I had the pleasure of traveling with Harold locally, nationally, and internationally. Sat in on 70% of his meetings, reorganized the departments of streets and sanitation, the Department of Water, the Department of Sewers, the Department of Inspectional Services, helped him to interview most of his department heads. He would tell his department heads, nobody speaks for me except for Bill Walls. I was 25 years of age, had awesome responsibility. Harold used to say there is no school for mayors, but if there was such a school, it's the school that he took me to. And I'm proud to stand here today as someone who's committed to making Chicago the place that it should be. Chicago is suffering. There are 2 Chicagos. There's a world-class Chicago and there's an underclass Chicago. That world-class Chicago is beautiful, it's safe, it's tourist-friendly, it's robust, it's full of resources and unlimited opportunities for the privileged few. That's the Chicago they love to brag about and showcase in the magazine. And then there's that underclass Chicago, decaying neighborhoods, unsafe streets, people dodging potholes and bullets, abusive trigger-happy police, inferior city services, no jobs, no schools, no parks, no economic development, food deserts, slumlords, gas and electricity shut-offs, real life, red light cameras, blue light cameras, speed zone cameras, potholes everywhere, vacant lots everywhere by design. It's not accidental. So my job is to bring attention to those things that most people don't experience. If you live on the north, northwest, and southwest sides of the city of Chicago, chances are you think Chicago is wonderful. This is the place. If you live on the south side, west side, it's kind of depressing. 97% of the young black men walking through the streets are unemployed. Those young men are between the ages of 18 and 25. Many of them are fathers. And I was a father at the age of 16. It's very difficult to go to see your child and the mother and the grandmother want to know where are the Pampers, where's the Enfamil. Eventually, you're out of answers and it gets more and more difficult for you to see that child. It's also difficult being a child and having a parent, male or female, that's in jail, and that's a reality. There are 2 million black folks in jail. Many of them are in jail for life, but then you have in other penal systems, like the county jails and city jails, millions of others, about 5.5 million others around the United States of America. That's 7 million people in jail, incarcerated, or in the system, and there are only 35 million black folks in the entire United States. Many of those people who are in jail are child rearing age. So they're the fathers of these young children who are the subject of discussion when people say, where are their parents? Their parents are in jail. That's the system. We have a prison industrial complex that makes money off of putting people in jail. And you have a lot of black folks who become the victims of that system. This isn't the first time. From 1619 to 1865, we had 246 years of legalized slavery in America. It took the Underground Railroad, the Civil War, the suspension of the Constitution, the Emancipation Proclamation, and 2 constitutional amendments to end that shamefully brutal institution. And people go about their lives every day as though it doesn't matter. Then we had 12 years of Reconstruction. And blacks were able to elect other blacks to positions of power, but that didn't last long. Then we had 100 years of Jim Crow, and the monikers of Jim Crow were blacks have no rights, which whites are bound to respect. The order of the day was separate but equal. We're still going through the same kinds of things here in the city of Chicago because Chicago is the most racially segregated city in America by the numbers. 90% of blacks in Chicago live in just 22 of Chicago's 77 communities. And those communities are 96% black. We have 33 communities that are 90% white and only 5% black. Racial segregation is the order of the day. And it's the South and West sides that are black and the Southwest, Northwest, North sides that are white. And it's like 2 different cities with 2 different mayors. You have the good Rahm over here running the North, Northwest, and Southwest sides, and he implements best practices. For example, when structures go into foreclosure in the white community, he brings in the financial institutions, brings in the community, and they preserve and protect those properties until someone is ready to take them over. On the South and West sides, Rahm has a program called Fast Track Demolition. They go in 3 weeks, they take a piece of property, board it up, put a red X on it, schedule it for demolition, and it's down in just a matter of another few weeks. So on the South side and West side, you have 13,500 vacant lots. Vacant lots don't generate any revenue. People don't pay property taxes because the city owns those vacant lots. And the city has to provide upkeep for those vacant lots and protect those vacant lots from vagrants and wrongdoers. On the Northwest, Southwest, and North side, we have 0 vacant lots. So that's just half the story. There's no economic development on the South and West sides of the city of Chicago. No grocery stores. There are food deserts in those 22 black communities. No fresh produce, fresh meat, no fresh dairy. You have mothers who are shopping in gas stations with their link cards. I want to get rid of link cards in the city of Chicago. I don't see any reason in this day and age that people should be learning and training their children to go and apply for public aid. Chicago has too much to offer. And if we treat everybody the same, if we treated everybody equally, if we developed each neighborhood on a mirror kind of basis, if we did the same thing on the South and West sides that we do on the North and Northwest side, in the North side, in the South side and Southwest side, Chicago would be a better place. And we'd be more competitive in this national and global economy. We cannot afford to lag behind the rest of the world, but as long as you have this drag on the South and West side, people unemployed, 44% of the people living below the poverty line. As long as you have an inferior system of education on the South and West sides, Chicago is going to continue to lag behind the rest of the world. We'll never be competitive. We live in a global economy. And today's global economy was made possible by the painstaking development of a global civil society. These were preachers and teachers and politicians and regular old family members and friends and consumers and companies who learned to communicate and cooperate with each other across all geographical, sociological, philosophical, ideological, political, all linguistic, all cultural barriers. They were determined to figure out who they were in life by comparing themselves to other people and making certain that the rest of the world wasn't getting ahead. And then along came the internet. And people lost their power. So then you had the 1% versus the 99%. Well, I'm fortunate that I represent the voice of the 99%. People who are just trying to get through life and be good to their neighbors. You know, so I fight for the homeless, the disadvantaged, the disabled, disconnected youth. I fight for our senior citizens. I fight for those people who live check to check.